I'm so excited to be here in front of you all, and I definitely want to echo a lot of what Brandon just shared. Specifically to our students here, if your parents are here or if the parents of your friends are here, take tonight to get to know them. I mean, our parents are such a big part for making us who we are, and some of the greatest honor really of me being in college has been to meet my friends' parents and to introduce them to my own parents, who my dad is actually here today. He drove from Waco. So just take tonight for it to be a sweet moment and to get to know the parents around you. Last week, we did get to hear from Brandon as he started us off in this next sermon series that we're doing here on Friday nights. Just as we consider different false gospels that our culture as Gen Z tends to put our hope in, whether we know it or not. And so before I jump into this week's false gospel of safety and security, I wanted to take a moment to just level the playing field. Because I myself am Gen Z, and so these gospels are things that I struggle with and am thinking through as well with you all. And Ross, I've clicked it, but I don't know what to do. No. Why would they give it to me not on? That's... I'm going to turn on my microphone, the clicker. This doesn't count as my sermon time. Ross, do you want to just go ahead and move it? And then Peter, we'll figure that out. So I graduated last year, actually, from UT Dallas. There we go. We just skipped a lot. I graduated last year with a degree in chemistry, but I'm originally from Waco, Texas, and I have 3 siblings, which we'll see. We're all kind of like in the college age. So 2 of them are at Texas Tech right now, both of my brothers. I have a sister who's at Angelo State, and those are my parents from Waco with the Alico building. Great building there. I was born in 2001. There is a 2 in front of my driver's license. I'm not going to try and pretend to be like almost a millennial, like I think some people try and do. Like they don't want to classify as Gen Z. I am Gen Z. This is my Clash of Clans. To some of you, like that means nothing, and it never will mean anything, and I don't expect it to. But to some of you, this is all you need to know about me. I'm a level 9 town hall, and so do with that as you will. On top of that, I think we have how fast I can type on a computer. But what's crazier is this is how fast I can type on my phone, which is weirdly similar to how quick I can type on a computer. And finally, I did go through the TikTok era. I had 2 different accounts, one of them with my roommate. One of them you can no longer find anymore because I deleted. And you can thank a guy named Justin Briggs for that. He no longer goes here. Only a few people know him. But it was my sophomore year of college. He came up to me. This account had like 90,000 followers. And he was like, "You're that guy from TikTok." And I just knew the aura of him. I hadn't even met him yet. I'm like, "Hi, my name's Paul." And my videos at that time, if I'm being honest, this was 2022. Everything at that time was strangely political. My videos were strangely political. So I went home that night and deleted the whole account. And so you can only find traces of it. But all this to say, these are things, these gospels are things that I'm learning to navigate with you all. But what's more important is the gospel that Jesus shares with us demands exclusivity. Paul showed us his own desire in 1 Corinthians 2, verse 2, to know nothing among you but Jesus Christ and him crucified. And this should be our own desire as we learn to navigate a world in which social media, music, the news, they all just put these thoughts in our brain before we even have the chance to consider if we want them there in the first place. So we have to learn to let the cross be the filter in which we process even our own culture. Over the next few weeks, we hope to share why all of these false gospels, although they try to take our exclusive attention and devotion, they don't align with the good life that God has in store for us. And so I'm going to start that with the false gospel of safety and security. So what is this false gospel? Well, I think it is that we try to secure all that we can for ourselves by putting our ultimate hope in jobs, our affluence, different relationships, or even just having like the right type of faith where God will grant us all of these things. We assume that they will keep us safe. And while we do have stories in the Bible of Daniel in the lion's den, God saving him, David beating Goliath, we also have stories of Stephen being stoned, and we have stories of John the Baptist being beheaded. And with these people, it wasn't from a lack of faith that this happened, but it was because of it. And so at the end of the day, God hasn't promised us ultimate safety or security from the things that we have on this earth. But if you believe he has, then that's going to lead you to question his faithfulness and character if it suddenly vanishes. You'll question his faithfulness if you don't get that test grade that you wanted. You'll question his faithfulness if you don't get that job. You'll question his character even in the face of death, because your hope is in the current life that you live and not the one that's promised to come. Our life is in God's hands, and safety outside of his control is a myth. But for most of us here, we are safe. We live in North Dallas, and we get to attend this university to get a very good degree. But I don't even think our culture as Gen Z can tell the difference between being safe and being comfortable, or being unsafe and simply being uncomfortable. It's like we've developed this new mantra where it's no longer the Descartes philosophy of I think, therefore I am, but rather I feel, therefore I am. I feel uncomfortable, so therefore I am unsafe. But do I desire the safest option or the one in which will make me look the most like Jesus? Before I continue, I wanted to give an example of this in my own life, one in which I was uncomfortable but wasn't necessarily unsafe. Ross, can you go to like 2 slides after this, please? Oh, nope. Yeah, that. So a few weeks ago, I went out on campus and in the busiest area called the Plinth, and I had this sign that simply read, "What burdens are you carrying? Let me carry it with you." And my goal in doing this was just simply to meet new students, just to start conversations about weights that they hold on themselves, and then possibly pray for people if that opportunity arose. But whenever I got to the Plinth, I immediately had the sign facing me. The words were facing me. I didn't want to show them out yet. And I was just so nervous. Like every part of my body, suddenly, I just didn't want to be there. I could just see all the eyes looking at me. But I'm a pretty bold person. I mean, there's a lot of eyes looking at me right now, but I don't necessarily feel the same that I felt that day. But I took a moment to pray, and I just considered the spirit of boldness God's put inside of me, and it was honestly great. Like, it was fine. I got to talk to so many people, got to pray for people, saw them continue the conversation as I left. So in this example, I wasn't unsafe. I mean, I'm 6'3", 220. You know, I'm in North Texas. But was me being uncomfortable a good enough excuse to ignore the direction the Spirit was giving me? And I think we see this on social media too. I mean, we joke on TikTok or on different posts that like our bodies don't know the difference between simply talking to a person and being attacked by a bear. Yeah, I mean, it's all around, it's what we're fed. But the reaction feels the same, but we're not being attacked by a bear. I wasn't unsafe in the Plinth. But we just need to ask ourselves each time, do I desire the safest option or the one in which will make me look the most like Jesus? I know we love saying safety first in everything we do. And while safety is good, if we live in this state of considering everything through the filter of safe versus unsafe, is going to create this byproduct of fear, which is then going to be repeated to us more in the media that we consume. And so I spent a minute combing through different news articles while preparing the sermon that talked about just how different threats in U.S. history affected how we perceive fear as citizens. One article by Time magazine noted a difference between now and decades before. Like during the Civil War, or Cold War, that was a long time before the Civil War, or after. During the Cold War, the constant talk of this nuclear fear required people to adjust to not live in this perpetual state of fear in order to function. Now, public data polls that Americans live not only at a much higher state of just continual fear, but were marked by jarring spikes, where everything just suddenly gets so fearful and then it will cool back down, instead of acclimating to a new normal. A second main difference that I saw is that Americans now feel more responsible to confront any physical threats on their own. The articles gave various examples like the declining trust as a whole in the US government, while external threats like terrorism increase. But politics aside, these articles used spikes in gun sales in order to track these spikes in public fear. It's estimated that background checks for firearms rose 21% and sales rose 12%, around 12%, after the 9/11 attack. Now, this data all is relatively new because it didn't start being tracked until 1999. However, the next time that we saw a spike as significant was between the period of 2020 and 2021. Of course, we know we saw COVID start, racial tensions were at a high, and political controversy was just spilling over during that time. And so then, during that period, yearly firearm sales were running about twice the level they were 20 years before. And again, this is an estimate, but they estimate that 18% of households bought a new firearm during that time. And so if we extend this now to the social arena, situations that used to be filtered through this lens of simply being agreeable or disagreeable or comfortable versus uncomfortable, they're now being filtered through, well, I feel emotionally safe or unsafe. I feel, therefore I am. I feel uncomfortable, therefore I am unsafe. I feel angry, therefore I am unsafe. I feel anxious, therefore I am unsafe. But the response our brain produces in these different situations are very complex and varied. We need exposure to uncomfortable situations in real life and learn how to sit in them in order to produce responses that aren't led by fear. And I do feel like I need to take a moment here to address anxiety, because we're told all the time that we're the most anxious generation to ever exist. And I feel that too. But rather than treat anxiety like this golden cow that we can't touch and constantly try and soothe those who suffer from it, I do think there is a biblical way to approach of showing special care to those in the Christian body who do suffer from anxiety. But we show special care to these parts, and that eventually they're healthy and strong again, so that they can function as the body should. Jesus is still Lord over anxiety, but even in anxiety, do I choose the safest option, or the one that will make me look the most like Jesus? So where do I see us defaulting to some of these safety nets? And keep in mind that a lot of these are some safety nets that I too am actively processing as I go about my day. But times where we will avoid uncomfortable situations for the sake of our own perceived safety. I think one example is whenever we're in the line of Chick-fil-A in the student union, we can all picture like how busy it gets during lunchtime. What's the first thing we all do when we're in line? We pull out our phone. But what are we even doing on our phone? We open the weather app, like we need to check the weather. But I know the student union does not get good service, so the weather app isn't even loading. And so you're just looking at a blank phone. Like, let's be honest. You're not looking, and you just walked through the weather, like you know what the weather is. Right? like to get into the SU. I think another example is when you walk into class or you walk into even this room, the Grove, do you look for a seat that doesn't have anyone sitting to the left or the right of you? I think I find myself doing that just because I don't want to have to scoot by someone or I don't want to have to ask someone to move their stuff. I'd rather sit alone. This last one is something that I'm still thinking through, even like walking through campus today, but what about headphones? Right? We're walking through the busiest parts of campus, and we're in all our own bubbles, and we're not even taking a moment to consider each other. But just like Brandon was saying, how college campuses are pretty strategic in that there's so many people here open to new ideas, I think Paul was really strategic in the Bible in which cities he went to preach the gospel. They seemed to be trade cities like Ephesus, where there were many different people from many different cultures coming to learn different things. Sounds really similar to UT Dallas, a college campus. But we're all wearing headphones and not willing to talk to each other. So in each of these options, do I desire the safest one or the one which will make me look the most like Jesus? So yeah, in each of these examples, we do fall to our own safety net to soothe our discomfort. But when each breath we take is sustained by God's hand, there's no better safety net than resting in Him. But even in that, even in our faith, I feel like many people assume, even from our generation, that we're just not supposed to take it too far. We commit to Christ when it means good moral choices, when we feel good and we feel spiritually full. But what about when it becomes financially challenging, physically dangerous, or pushes us beyond our determined level of comfort that we're willing to be in? Like Brandon again said last week, our lives are defined by our loves and affections. If you let goals that bring comfort and security lead the motives of your heart, then those very same goals will rob you of the joy that comes from a life devoted to Jesus when you don't achieve them. In Philippians 3:8, Paul considers everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage so that I may gain Christ. Yet we live in a culture where #blessed dominates so many social media posts that you see on Instagram or Facebook, if we have Facebook. But just filtering through these posts on social media and these conversations, we believe that people who are blessed by God may be those who are well-fed, fulfilled, happy, satisfied with their present life circumstances. But according to the words of Jesus that we all read earlier in Matthew, the opposite seems true. Those that are blessed actually sound quite miserable. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Jesus was clear in John 16:13, saying, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so if we convince ourselves that the good life God has in store is always safe, always happy, always feels good, then we're going to avoid anything that makes us feel the opposite. However, we have a crucified Lord at the head of this Christian movement. He was willing to put his faith in God and confidently knew that God was for him. So anything that God asked, Jesus knew it was for his own good. And then Jesus asks his disciples, and he asks us to do the same. Jesus tells anyone who wants to be his disciple, they must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow him. But let's imagine the disciples hearing these words for the first time before Jesus died on the cross, without 2,000 years of Christian art imagery of the cross. What did they hear? They would immediately hear the cross as an instrument of torture used to kill people in the most painful way imaginable at that time. And that's what Jesus is asking them to pick up. What? That doesn't sound like a comfortable gospel. Are you comfortable reading those words? Because I don't think they're meant to be. However, for most of us here, we do live in a very safe society that has advanced at a fast rate. The disciples feared the Romans coming in and unjustly crucifying thousands of Christians, which they did do multiple times. We have air conditioning, running water, food at the grocery store, electricity. But with all of these advancements that are good, some sociologists agree that we may see some problems. One problem is that these technologies have lowered pretty much across the board what humans find tolerable. I mean, just the other night when there was that bad storm up here in Dallas, I woke up in the middle of it, not from the thunder, not from the rain that was low-key pouring through my open window because I've been sleeping with my window open, not from the lightning, but because my fan turned off. I lost power in my house for a minute, and I woke right up because my fan turned off. We think that decisions that lead us out of these luxuries are too risky. But I think a problem with seeing this as a risk is that then we could conclude that God took a risk by sending Jesus into this world because of what happened to him. Taking a risk demands ignorance. That you don't quite know what the outcome is going to be, but will weigh the pros and cons and will make a decision. Yet God knew exactly what the outcome of Jesus' life on this earth would be. It was not a risk, it was a sacrifice. And so, for one of my apprenticeship classes, where we recently read through Revelations, and in it, John was told to write to some specific churches. To the church in Laodicea, he writes, "You say, 'I am rich. I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing,' but you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked." Yet to the church in Smyrna, he writes, "I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown." Some people will comfortably sit in their luxuries that they are given by God and forget their first and foremost need of Jesus. To Paul, to the Revelation, there are nothing more than pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. But we, along with Paul and those who are in the church of Smyrna, can look up at the cross and say, "I am with him." As we step out of our comfort and confidence, knowing that we are following in the footsteps of the one who will one day conquer the whole world. You can live a good life, a good, long, safe life as a really good person, but you're still going to die. And who's going to get you through that? So do I desire the safest option or the one that will make me look the most like Jesus? I know the hope that the gospel gives rings true for us living in North Dallas as it does a Christian child living in the midst of war and poverty in the Middle East. Do we turn to Jesus only for the blessings we find in our comfort, or for the eternal promise that lies beyond our present circumstances, whether in comfort or affliction? Because you could be asked to do both. And so let's think about muscles for a second. We wouldn't look at a strong bicep and think, wow, that's really fragile. That's a really weak muscle. No, it's actually the opposite. You gain that strength. As the muscle gains that strength, what we don't see are the fibers that are constantly being torn as you work out, and then they have to be mended. And as they fix themselves, they become stronger with time. And I think this is true for us and how we feel in these situations. What doesn't kill you won't actually kill you in the first place, and it will actually make you stronger. And God actually demands courage from us. Joshua 1:9 reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." We all love to joke about how lonely this campus is. I think most of us here know, and if you're a parent and you don't know, it makes the top 10 list pretty regularly of the loneliest campuses in the United States. But as followers of Jesus, we should be the most bold in going out of our way to meet new people and make new friends, because we know that God has got us no matter where we go. And so I don't know, haven't seen him here today, but I got coffee with Juan a few weeks ago, and he told me a really cool story about how he got involved in Focus. And I called Will later to talk about the story more and to ask if I could share it. But Will said that one afternoon, Mi Gente, which is kind of a subsection of Focus here, was tabling in the plinth. And there weren't very many people, so Will decided that he was going to start going up to people and sharing about the organization, sharing about Focus. And from the other side of the plinth, Will saw who would become Juan walk across, and he just felt the Spirit at that time say, I need to go talk to that person. But Juan had already walked up the stairs towards the Starbucks in the student union area and was already low-key out of sight. And so Will followed Juan up the stairs, chased him up, went inside the student union, and just cold approached him and said, "Hey, I'm Will. This is Mi Gente. This is Focus. This is who we are." And now Juan is such a good friend to so many people. He is a reason why this place feels like home for me and for so many other students. But there are some people who walk into this room on a Friday night and they freeze with fear because there's so many people. What's the good life that Jesus has in store for them? Is it to go back to the dorm alone? Do they desire the safest option or the one that will make us look the most like Jesus? What about when we look to invite someone to core and we just get so caught up in our heads? Core is our weekly small group that meets usually in the apartments of our leaders. And we get to read scripture, we get to pray for each other, we get to invite someone and they'll be, well seen, known, make friends, be loved, but we're like, oh my gosh, it's so awkward to invite them to that. I don't want to invite them to a place they'll be loved and probably get a free meal and get to know Jesus. What? Do you desire the safest option or the one that will make you look the most like Jesus? Or even just when asking someone that you want to be their friend, or closer friends, better friends, or more vulnerable when a friend has hurt you and you tell them that. In these, we're exposing our own heart. We're making ourselves willing to be hurt even deeper. But do you desire the safest option or the one that will make you look the most like Jesus? Worship team, you can start heading back up. We're called to die to ourselves in different ways. This is what most of the discomfort will look like. It may feel painful and hard to do, and I'm not going to discount that. But what are you called to? Are you called to your feelings? Those are real in these moments, but they're not what we're called to follow. You are called to look like Jesus and go where he is leading you. That could be to someone on the other side of the classroom, the other side of the office, or to even just take out your headphones in the SU and listen. These are all intentional choices and uncomfortable at times. Our great example, Jesus, embraced more than the discomfort for us. He embraced the cross with all of its pain, humiliation, and ultimately death. He trusted God, and God raised him and exalted him. And I just ask that you consider the blood he shed for each person that you see in these situations. And so, God, because we know the hope that we have in eternal security through Jesus is the only thing that is guaranteed, and that everything else in this world will pass, I pray that we can be a bold light of that hope to the world around you and be willing to step into situations that don't see it yet. I ask that you keep Jesus' love for us, shown on the cross, be at the front of your mind and our mind as we go about our day, and be able to go to him for constant comfort and peace. Amen.